there's a potentially big update relating to the investigation being led by Robert Mueller that could possibly involve Hillary Clinton's former campaign manager, John Podesta, and his brother, Tony Podesta, who was leading the Podesta group. The Podesta group got caught up themselves as part of the Mueller probe. This was briefly reported in the regular media late last year. It ended up getting kind of buried. A lot of people, at least the mainstream media, has been somewhat ignoring the Podestas and what has been happening with the Podesta brothers, but they were in some sort of trouble late last year to the point that the Podesta group that was led by Tony Podesta, even the mainstream sources, when they were talking about this, they didn't really go further in trying to find the extent of John Podesta, who, again, was working with Hillary Clinton, Barack Obama, Bill Clinton, his role in the corruption at the Podesta group. They were trying to lay the blame just on Tony Podesta when it's clear that John Podesta was also working on behalf of the Podesta group informally throughout that period as well. One of the allegations against the Podesta group, one of the things that they were caught doing wrong, actually, and this was admitted to later, Mueller was reportedly looking at the Podesta's work on a pro-Ukraine public relations campaign. Many have heard of this scandal, again, at the time, late last year, but they were running this campaign between 2012 and 2014. Was organized by Paul Manafort, who was the only one who was getting in trouble in this aspect of the Mueller probe. At least the Podestas have not, as far as we know, gotten in any sort of trouble for this officially. Podesta and his firm violated, they later had to come out and admit their violation of the Foreign Agents Registration Act. This was after they did not disclose their work for a foreign government through the Podesta group. They retroactively had to file, they later had to file this FARA registration, which is allowed under federal law after they were forced to, basically, after they were exposed. So this is the recent news today, talking about and not giving any specific names. Some people thinking this might tie to the Podestas, this reported immunity deal. This is being reported by many different regular media sources that Mueller is seeking immunity. They do give the official court documents, so this is known, but they're giving no names yet. It's secret as to exactly who these 5 witnesses are that are going to be given immunity, it seems, in order to indict Paul Manafort. This is one just report detailing what we do know about these people being given immunity, these immunity agreements, up to 5 witnesses in the upcoming trial of former Trump campaign chairman Paul Manafort. According to court documents filed Tuesday, the witnesses were not identified, and Mueller has asked U.S. District Judge T.S. Ellis to keep their names under seal until they are called to testify, which may never happen. So that's another, I guess, troubling part of these reports. We may never know exactly who these 5 witnesses are that are being given immunity if they are never called to testify. So they could be setting that up, basically just being giving protection to Podesta if the Podesta brothers are 2 of these 5 witnesses, and others. This report says Manafort's trial on bank and tax fraud charges is set to begin July 25th. Again, going to the details of the witnesses, they say in the government's request for the court to protect the 5 witnesses' identities, prosecutors argued that sealing the documents is, and again, this comes directly from the court documents, the quote reads, that sealing the identities is necessary because the motions would reveal the identities of uncharged third parties involved in the investigation and the trial, thereby creating the risk of undue harassment. They also say that sealing is also appropriate because the information contained in the motions could lead to reputational harm. So that is the reason they're giving for not disclosing the identities of these 5 witnesses. That's what the government's arguing. Just to close off on that article, and then again, I'll go to a second report where they expand on the speculation that this is that these witnesses are the Podesta brothers, at least 2 of them, that are being protected. This report just closes off saying the government's actions indicate that the prosecutors are ramping up their preparations for trial, though Ellis has yet to rule on a defense request to delay the case by 2 months. Defense attorneys argue that the potential jury pool in Alexandria has been tainted by excessive pretrial publicity. Finally, the government has opposed both defense motions. So already some suspicion that the Podesta brothers might be 2 of these 5 witnesses. Here was one report originally from the Gateway Pundit, and it is sort of just editorialized, really. They're just giving the details that we know about there being 5 witnesses, and just give a quote from not really an insider, just another Twitter user that was speculating that this could be the Podestas. It is a possible theory that they are the witnesses here, and it would explain, I think, some of the comments that I looked at earlier that I was surprised at, how John Podesta was smugly responding to the 12 Russian agents that were indicted last week, saying, looks like the hunters have caught the witches, saying when you meet with Putin, this was before the Trump-Putin summit, just before, will you stand up for America, or will you once again fold like a cheap suit? He's taking shots at President Donald Trump, at mentioning him and saying the hunters have caught the witches in reference to these 12 Russian indicted agents. Meanwhile, the same Mueller investigation, the Podesta group had to shut down, their reputation ruined to the point that they had to shut down for, in part, these undisclosed ties that were looked at. They likely should be indicted, at least if Manafort is being indicted at this point. There's no reason that the Podestas should be given this special protection, or it seems like they have so far, unless there is some kind of deal being made. So it very well could be. I'll just see what the Gateway Pundit said on this. Again, it is sort of editorialized. They don't really have any additional hard evidence that it is Podesta brothers. We'll see if we know more. Again, we might never know if the witnesses never go to actually testify. This article, though, they do speculate. They say earlier today it was reported that Robert Mueller is seeking to give immunity to 5 potential witnesses in the Paul Manafort trial, according to a new court filing Tuesday. It's now suspected that 2 of the witnesses are creepy and criminal Podesta brothers, the Democrats' poster boys. Mueller is filing the requests under seal. Manafort is facing charges of bank and tax fraud, and his trial begins next Wednesday in the Eastern District of Virginia. These 5 potential witnesses have not been charged, and their identity has not been released to the public. Through the NBC reporter Tom Winter, they give a couple quotes. First reading, the special counsel office notifies the court that they will seek immunity for up to 5 people to testify under conditions of immunity in the upcoming trial against Paul Manafort in Virginia. They say these people have not been publicly named before in the case. The special counsel's office says that they aren't sure if they will call any of the witnesses, so they want to file the requests for immunity under seal. From the filing, the motions indicate that the named individuals will not testify or provide other information on the basis of their privilege against self-incrimination, and that the government is requesting that the court compel them to testify at the upcoming trial. Finally, before people jump to conclusions, this NBC reporter says they request that people note that this potential testimony could be tied to prior bad acts, he calls them, SCO, or has indicated may be presented. SCO has indicated that they may be presented. We also don't know who and what they may testify to. This happens in trial. That's, again, if they testify, maybe this is just a secret immunity deal. If they never testify, we'll never know their identities, and they'll still get this immunity in this case. They, again, getting to the point of this speculation that this is Tony Podesta, the Gateway pundit, they don't really have any new information confirming that it is in fact Podesta, but they just point to one user saying it's now suspected that two of the criminals that Mueller is aligning himself with are the creepy and criminal Podesta brothers. One user, The Last Refuge on Twitter, said, "We see this for what it is. We're seeing this for what it is. Robert Mueller is necessarily granting immunity to John and Tony Podesta while prosecuting Paul Manafort, their former contracted employee. Team Mueller also wants the court records sealed." Also, that's a good point. The court records under this deal will be sealed as well. This user says that that's going to be done in order to hide the partisan deal from public sunlight. So that's a possible theory. Again, it's going around. I think people, you might hear that more. As far as I know, people are running with the Gateway Pundit article. They're just kind of referencing one Twitter user, one possible theory, but it would potentially explain a few questions that people have about exactly what has been going on with the Podesta brothers recently. Let me know what you think about all of this. Leave a comment. If you would subscribe to the channel, I will follow up with more information. Another reminder, I'm on patreon.com/realityreader. Thank you everybody that donates over there. A few dollars even makes a huge difference. Patreon.com/realityreader. I have a link in the description of this video, links to the articles that I looked at. I will follow up soon. Leave a comment. Thanks again.